You're not allowed to own that creek. That's what the HOA president told me, like the stream that's run beside my family's cabin for 3 generations suddenly belonged to her clipboard. 1 week later, she and her board buddies were camping there like it was their private resort. Tense lanterns, wine glasses clinking right outside my window. And when the county showed up with shutdown orders, oh, then she screamed, loud, like we were the ones trespassing. I didn't yell back. I didn't have to. Not yet. I gotta ask though, where are y'all watching from? Drop your city or state in the comments. I'm real curious how far this kind of HOA crazy travels. A $10,000 fine for unauthorized land disruption. That was the first thing I saw printed in bold block letters on a notice duct taped to my porch rail. Not mailed, not folded, just slapped on like a threat. I thought it had to be a mistake. I hadn't even trimmed a bush lately. My shoulder was still sore from hauling firewood, but the thick paper and how the wind tugged its corners told me this wasn't a prank. Someone wanted me to panic. I was still staring at the notice when a black SUV crunched up my gravel drive. Not a neighbor, unless someone upgraded their ride and attitude overnight. A tall woman stepped out, hair pulled so tight it polished her forehead. City clean suit, sharp heels, but what stuck with me was the pen matte black with silver trim. Probably a Mont Blanc. The kind you give CEOs, not HOA reps. You must be David, she said like she was delivering cookies, not a financial gut punch. Rebecca Sterling, HOA Compliance Officer for Willow Creek Preservation Council. I blinked. There's an HOA. Yes, we recently integrated several parcels under collective stewardship. You should have received a packet last month. Her smile tightened my gut. This land falls within Phase 1 of our environmental alignment zone. She handed me a glossy brochure, pine trees, trails, fake-looking people doing yoga beside a stream. We're focusing on sustainable wellness, she said. Lots of support. I didn't open it. Just glanced at the SUV where a laminated sign leaned in the window. Willow Creek Renewal Initiative. I looked down at the notice again. The fine was real. So I owe 10 grand because I live in my own cabin. Technically for not aligning your usage with community conservation goals, she said. You're still operating under legacy use structures. Legacy use. My dad built the shed in '73 with hand-chopped lumber. If that's legacy, they'd better brace for a fight. We hope you'll participate voluntarily, she added. It's easier than legal escalation. She pulled another form from her folder. You're one of the last holdouts. Most neighbors have already cooperated. I didn't say anything, but that's when I noticed movement in the trees. A familiar figure approached Tom Halpern from 2 lots up the hill. He looked sheepish. I'd helped him fix a busted axle 2 winters ago. She's right, he said, scratching the back of his neck. 8 families already signed the transfer. I blinked. 8. That can't be right. I squinted at him. You're sure all of them sold? He gave a tiny nod. Wouldn't meet my eyes. They made it sound easy. Said it was temporary, reversible. I looked back at Rebecca, who watched us like a teacher grading a group project. She handed me another flyer. This creek is part of a protected corridor. Shared resource. We want to make sure it remains pristine and accessible. I felt something tighten in my chest. I buried my dad's ashes under that cedar tree, I said, nodding toward the bend in the water. It's not just a resource. Her voice softened half a tone. That's exactly why we're doing this. To protect memories like yours. The words were smooth, corporate, practiced. But her eyes never looked sad. They looked calculating, and all I could see was red ink on my inheritance and strangers staking out my past. She left me with the citation, the brochure, and a deadline 10 days. After that, she said we moved to enforcement measures. I didn't ask what that meant. I didn't want to give her the satisfaction. I stood on the porch long after she left, holding the notice in one hand and the brochure in the other. I listened to the wind move through the branches, the creek rolling like it had every morning since I was a boy. I wanted to believe none of this was real, that I could wake up tomorrow and it'd be just me and the water again. But denial doesn't work when the threat is written in black and white, signed in triplicate, and parked at the bottom of your driveway. That night I sat at the old kitchen table, the one with the burn mark from my grandfather's pipe, and read every word of the violation notice. I looked up the code they cited. I mapped the parcel lines. I highlighted the parts that didn't make sense. Then I started flipping through the old zoning records I kept in a dusty file cabinet. 30 years working as an environmental scientist left me with habits I couldn't shake. and knowledge they clearly didn't expect me to have. The next morning, I walked the edge of my land with a notebook and camera. I took photos of every inch the trees, the creek, the old footbridge my father and I rebuilt the summer before he died. I took a video of the dawn light hitting the water and labeled it Proof of Condition Day 1. I didn't know exactly what they were planning, but I knew how these things worked. I'd seen corporations squeeze small communities through public-private partnerships. I'd watched landowners get drowned in paperwork and slowly give up. But I also knew the weak point in every plan was arrogance. Rebecca had come to my cabin thinking I'd be confused, overwhelmed, old. But I'd fought federal water policy in D.C. I'd negotiated land use compromises between oil companies and tribal councils. I'd been underestimated by people much scarier than a clipboard and heels. Still, something about this felt different, more personal, like someone had targeted my quiet on purpose. I found myself replaying her visit that night in my head, the way she smiled, the way she spoke over me like I was just background noise, the way Tom couldn't meet my eyes. Something was off, way off. By the third day, I started noticing signs of changes near the creek. Someone had hung solar-powered string lights between the trees at the bend. There was a folding table I hadn't placed, a portable composting toilet half covered by a tarp. This wasn't theoretical anymore. It was already happening. I walked upstream and found another laminated sign, this one wedged into the dirt beside a new trail marker. Future Site Willow Creek Eco Pavilion. My hand clenched around the camera. My dad's voice echoed in my mind. Don't let someone else write your history. I documented everything. I started drafting a formal response. I logged Juan's weather photos, GPS data. I listed environmental violations, creek health patterns, runoff inconsistencies. I didn't sleep much. Every noise outside felt like someone claiming another inch of ground. I emailed the county office. I requested a map overlay. I pulled the old land deeds from the fireproof box under my bed. And when I found a scanned copy of my grandfather's original survey, I nearly cried. It was marked in his handwriting, McAllister Creek, for the boys. We were the boys, me and my dad, him and his dad before that. I realized then that this wasn't just legal, it was emotional. They weren't just trying to take my land, they were trying to rewrite its meaning. If they built that trail, that deck, that bathhouse, they'd erase the fingerprints of every McAllister who ever touched this place. They'd sanitize it for tourists and pretend it was always that way. That's what people like Rebecca did. They polished away the stories that didn't fit their narrative. But I wasn't going to let her polish mine. I wasn't going to let this place be turned into a brochure with my memories airbrushed out. On the 10th day, I stood on the porch waiting. I expected her to return with another document, maybe a deputy, but the road stayed quiet. No SUV, no high heels, just the birds and the water and the rising wind. I checked my email and found a new notice, unsigned, automated. Enforcement action delayed pending review. That bought me time, not much, but enough. I leaned against the cedar post my grandfather installed. I closed my eyes and listened to the creek. My fingers brushed the old carved initials in the porch rail, GM plus DM 1987. I was DM. I'd carved that with a pocket knife the year he taught me how to cast a line. That cabin was my grandfather's heart. Letting it go without a fight felt like letting him die twice. Birds stopped singing when I heard that engine. Not even a wing flap or rustle, just silence. It wasn't the peaceful kind either. It was loaded like the air knew something was coming before I did. I stepped out onto the porch with my usual chipped mug of black coffee, but the taste suddenly felt off. The scent of pine was gone, replaced by burnt fuel, and something else, plastic cold, synthetic. And then came the sound, tires slow and crunching gravel, like someone meaning to be noticed. My gut twisted before I even saw it. A silver Mercedes. Smooth clean, too perfect for this place. It rounded the bend like it belonged, but I knew better. The car eased up beside the gate and idled there like it had a right to be breathing my air. The door opened, and out she stepped. Rebecca. She looked like she'd walked off the set of some procedural show, flawless blazer clipboard in hand, and a stare that could cut timber. Her heels clicked over the stone path without hesitation. "Good morning, Mr. McAllister," she said, like we were old friends catching up. I didn't move. She handed me a laminated document, the county seal stamped hard on top. Another violation notice. I didn't even need to read the thing. I'd seen the format before. unauthorized land use failure to comply with ecological transition parameters, and my new favorite refusal to participate in community alignment protocols. This one was longer than the last typed in government-safe language that made it sound like I was the problem for daring to exist. "This is escalating," I muttered mostly to myself. She gave me a bright smile. "That's how democracy works," she said. I stared at her. My mouth wanted to throw a dozen comebacks, but nothing felt worth wasting on someone who'd rehearsed her indifference. My father used to warn me about people like her. "Don't trust the ones who smile while stealing from you," he'd say. She tucked a piece of hair behind her ear, like she was straightening her halo. "You're welcome to appeal, of course," she added, like this was all optional. "But I must inform you that Phase 2 is already underway." I blinked. "Phase 2 of what exactly?" She didn't even flinch. "Community harmonization." She handed me a second brochure, the kind you would find in a dentist's waiting room, airbrushed families doing yoga by artificial waterfalls. Same stock photos, same meaningless slogans. But this one had a fresh label slapped on the back: Willow Creek Eco Village, a lifestyle transformation. I looked past her to the edge of the creek, just beyond the tree line. That spot was where I used to fish with my dad. I could almost hear his voice dry as tinder. "You let 'em rename your land, they already buried you." She left without waiting for a response. Just turned on her heel, slid into that shiny machine, and disappeared down the road like she'd delivered gospel. I stood there with the notice in my hand, its words already burning into my gut. 10 days. That's all I had before enforcement actions. What did that even mean? Fines, bulldozers. I sat on the porch rail, the notice flapping in the breeze like a flag surrendering before the war had even begun. Inside, I cleared off the kitchen table, spreading every document I'd received so far across the surface. Flyers, warnings, courtesy notices, every damn piece of paper they'd weaponized. I pulled out my old laptop from the cabinet above the fridge. It booted up with a wheeze screen flickering for a second, like it remembered Techron too. I opened a new spreadsheet. This wasn't about hunches anymore. It was about patterns. I started logging at all dates, names, phrases. I color-coded language similarities. Ecological restoration appeared 15 times. Community well-being showed up on every notice, always next to something they wanted to take. I highlighted boundary discrepancies on scanned maps, cross-checked file metadata, and even traced phone numbers. Halfway through, I stopped and pulled the original deed from the fireproof box. My grandfather's cursive filled the corners, tiny loops and all. That handwriting felt more real than any stamp or seal. The next morning, I walked the perimeter with a notebook and my phone. I took photos of every fresh tire mark, every strange pile of trash, every subtle sign they had been here. When I reached the bend in the creek, my stomach dropped. A wooden platform had been erected overnight. It wasn't finished, but it was there clear as daylight. 2 folding chairs sat on it. One had a ceramic mug still half full. Warm. Someone had just been here. I snapped pictures like a madman. Angles, footprints, everything. Then I saw the sign. Future Site, Willow Creek Mindfulness Deck. That word mindfulness made my skin crawl. It was like branding a wolf as a therapist. I stared at that mug again, steam still curling out like it belonged. It didn't. None of this did. This was invasion dressed as community. I turned around and walked away fast. Anger buzzed in my teeth. I'd seen this before at Techron in South Dakota, even in the Gulf projects. They rename it, repackage it, sell it to the world as a better version of what you already had, and then they bury the truth under glossy renderings and quarterly reports. That afternoon, I ran into Tom Halpern at the gas station. He avoided eye contact fiddling with the pump. "They came to me too," he said. Said it was temporary. Said it was going to improve things. Said you were being uncooperative. My throat tightened. I didn't answer. He shrugged. I didn't know it'd go this far. Then came the line, "I'm sorry." But sorry doesn't unsign paperwork or uncut trees. It just hangs there weightless and late. That night, I drafted my first formal complaint to the county. I kept my tone sharp but clean. No shouting in all caps. Just facts, GPS pins, timestamps, photo evidence, and violations of at least 6 zoning regulations. I cited precedent cases, public health code, even water rights statutes. If they wanted a paper trail, I'd give them one that turned into a rope. I didn't sleep that night. The creek outside my window used to lull me. That night it sounded off. I sat in the dark eyes scanning tree lines. Twice I thought I saw lanterns flickering deep in the woods. I wasn't sure if they were real or if my mind was getting twitchy, but either way I felt watched, and not just by wildlife. The next morning a package arrived. No sender, no stamps. Just a flat manila envelope tucked neatly under my doormat. I opened it on the counter, breath tight in my chest. Inside was a single printed page parcel review, Willow Creek Transitional Overlay. I scanned the content. My land specifically noted was listed under pending reallocation, Phase 3. The document had been finalized 3 months ago. 3 months, before the first brochure, before Rebecca showed up, before anyone said a single word to me. That's when it hit me like a truck. This wasn't some government reaction to non-compliance. This was premeditated, a setup, a timeline dressed up as policy. I held the page for a while, just looked at it like maybe if I stared long enough it'd disappear, but it didn't. It sat there smug and final. I lit a match and burned it in the sink piece, curling black under the flame. Then I just stood there, let the smoke rise, fill the kitchen, sting my eyes. They'd planned this. They'd always planned this. The escalation hadn't begun that morning. It had started long before. I'd just finally caught up. I found the email at 6:42 in the morning. No subject line, just a black box in my inbox labeled FYI. I clicked before my coffee had even cooled. Inside was a zip folder, encrypted but cracked wide open on download. The contents hit like a punch to the ribs, scanned notes from my divorce mediation, my dad's hospice chart recordings from a therapy group I attended 4 years ago. I couldn't breathe for a second. It wasn't just files. They knew my therapy dates, my father's final hour. This wasn't intimidation. It was psychological warfare. I sat frozen, jaw clenched, watching the loading bar crawl while a part of me wanted to slam the laptop shut. But I couldn't stop looking. Embedded in the email text was one line, back off or we escalate further. No name, no signature, just digital poison. I stared out the window, mind racing, adrenaline churning like a slow hurricane. This was beyond zoning and camping. They'd gone for the gut, for memory, for my identity. I reached for my coffee hands, trembling so badly I nearly dropped the mug. Something in me broke that morning, but not in the way they wanted. My thumb hovered over Lisa's name for a full minute. We hadn't spoken in years. Maybe she'd hang up. Maybe she'd save my life. I hit call. The line rang twice before her voice came on, sharp and curious. "David?" she asked, more suspicion than warmth. I cleared my throat. "Yeah, I need your help." A pause. Then, "Is this about Willow Creek?" I blinked. "How do you know that?" She exhaled sharply. "Because you're not the only one who got hit. Someone's been busy. We agreed to meet at the coffee shop near the courthouse. Neutral ground, familiar but not too familiar. Lisa was already seated when I walked in. Same posture as always, spine, straight eyes, assessing fingers wrapped around a chipped mug like it might testify against her. "You look like hell," she said without irony. I gave a half smile. "Feel worse." She motioned for me to sit. I almost told her I was scared, that I hadn't slept in days, but I bit it back. This wasn't the time. I slid the flash drive across the table. They sent this. Private stuff. Way too private. She plugged it into her laptop, eyes narrowing as files opened. "Jesus," she whispered. "They really did their homework." For a minute we just sat in silence. Lisa clicked through the folders while I watched her face twist from skepticism to something else, shock maybe, recognition. "This isn't just a smear campaign," she said. "They're collecting psychological profiles." I nodded, which means someone's funding this. Someone who knows how to hurt people legally, quietly. She scrolled faster, murmuring legal terms under her breath like she was casting spells. Then she stopped. "Wait, this name, I've seen it before." I leaned in. "Where?" She tapped a file. "Back when I clerked in Sacramento, there was a land trust investigation buried fast. We moved to a quieter table in the back. She opened her own encrypted folder and started cross-referencing names, dates, connections. That's when it became clear this wasn't just HOA power play. It was a shell company network, funneling land acquisitions through community initiatives. Back in law school, we used to joke about taking down Wall Street one day. Neither of us laughed now. "They're flipping these sites under the banner of environmental reform," Lisa said. "Using nonprofit fronts, leasing to private resorts on the back end, all tax sheltered." I swallowed hard. "They're laundering nature." Lisa rubbed her eyes, visibly shaken. They're using public trust language to commit real estate fraud. She pointed at one document. Here, community wellness overlay, that's not a legal zoning term. It's fiction. I watched her flip through 2 more spreadsheets. It's all fake, she muttered. But it feels official. That's how they get away with it. I sat back overwhelmed. So, what do? Lisa looked up, her expression flat. We dig, quietly, and when we strike, we make it hurt. I nodded, but under the table my hand clenched into a fist. Not out of anger, out of resolve. Later that night, I stood in my driveway with a flashlight scanning for movement. My paranoia was now justified, which somehow made it worse. The shadows weren't just shadows anymore. Every rustle, every shift in wind felt like surveillance. Amanda showed up around 8. No camera, just a folder and a thermos. It's happening, she said. They're prepping the pavilion frame. It's already staked out. I took the folder. Inside were more photos, lights strung across trees, signs marked Wellness Center Expansion. I shook my head. They're not even pretending anymore. Amanda looked down. They never were. We just wanted to believe they might. We sat on the porch while the creek murmured in the dark. She asked about the email. I told her enough to make her eyebrows lift and her mouth set firm. You think Lorraine's behind it? She asked. I hesitated. She's the face, but someone bigger's writing the checks. Amanda stared out at the tree line. Well, whoever they are, they messed up. I glanced sideways. How so? She sipped from the thermos. They assumed you'd fold. That I'd stay quiet. That Lisa wouldn't get involved. They're betting on fear. I nodded slowly, then we bet on facts. Over the next few days, the plan took shape. Lisa handled legal strategy. Amanda gathered visual evidence. I compiled data, rainfall charts, runoff impact maps, native flora reports. We weren't just fighting development anymore. We were building a case, one piece at a time. I contacted an old professor from UC Davis. He agreed to analyze soil contamination samples from near the mindfulness deck. Amanda interviewed campers who'd already left the site, some of whom admitted they'd been promised refunds and spa vouchers. Lisa dug up the board's bylaws. Turns out their last 3 votes weren't even properly recorded. Then came the leak. A folder showed up on Amanda's windshield, late one evening, no label, no sender. Inside were financial statements tied to Willow Creek Renewal Initiative. Half the donations came from a defunct shell company based in Nevada. Another third, a wellness tourism fund connected to a disgraced investor who once pitched pyramid healing domes. Lisa cross-checked the signatures. 3 were forgeries. This was bigger than us, bigger than Lorraine, and we finally had the receipts. We met again at the creek, Amanda, Lisa, and I. No campfires, no cameras, just notebooks and nerves. If we go public, it has to be airtight, Lisa warned. No guesswork, no speculation, just facts delivered with surgical precision. Amanda nodded. I've started cutting a teaser reel. Nothing dramatic, just enough to make people ask questions. I added, we'll file the complaint to the state, not just the county. Make it official. Force an audit. Lisa smirked for the first time in days. Looks like they're about to meet the people they underestimated. That night, I sat by the window with my laptop open, listening to the creek. Amanda's teaser played on loop. Drone footage, close-ups of trash piles, Lorraine smiling as someone poured dishwater into the stream, and a voiceover, when preservation becomes profit, who's really being protected? I watched it 3 times, then emailed it securely to 4 journalists, 1 state senator, and a water rights watchdog. Just a preview, no accusations, just questions. Sometimes questions are louder than proof, and the people who fear questions the most are usually the ones who already know the answers. I found Bradley slumped in his truck outside the general store, gripping the steering wheel like he was hanging onto a cliff. The engine was on, but the man wasn't going anywhere. He looked like someone who had just lost a war with himself. I tapped on the window. He jumped, then rolled it down, slow eyes bloodshot. "David," he said, voice thin and scratchy. "You got a minute?" I didn't answer right away. Just looked at him. "Only if you're done lying." His face crumpled. That's why I stayed. We sat there in silence for a while. The radio mumbled some country ballad neither of us cared to hear. Finally, he reached into the console and handed me a small blue USB. His fingers lingered. I was on tech support for the HOA's Green Zone initiative. They said it was just data backups, zoning stuff. I didn't say anything, just stared. After that board meeting, something felt off. so I started digging. A bead of sweat slipped down his face. "Emily's pregnant?" he added, voice cracking. "I wasn't trying to screw anyone. I just needed insurance." He looked ashamed to exist. "They told us we were preserving land, that we were helping, but it's not that. It's a land grab. There's files, scripts, pre-written testimonials, fake vote logs, transfer papers signed before the meetings." He pointed at the USB like it might burn him. "It's all on there. I didn't say a word. Just took it." He swallowed hard. "I don't want to disappear, man. But I can't keep pretending either." His voice dropped to a whisper. "I can't look my kid in the eye and lie anymore." I nodded slow. "Then don't." I sat in my cabin later that night, staring at the USB like it might explode. I hadn't plugged it in yet. My thumb hovered over the trackpad. What if it was bait? What if they were watching this second? But I had to know. "Screw it," I muttered and slid it into the port. The screen flickered to life. Folders opened. Dozens of them. Some labeled cleanly eco reports, committee notes, but others had code names, encrypted logs, mismatched timestamps. I dug in. It was bad. Redacted minutes, altered zoning maps, overwritten file histories. Whoever prepped this thought, they were covering tracks. But they missed things, metadata glitches, conflicting edits. Enough for a case. Then I found an audio file, Q3 review Rebecca. Her voice came through calm and crisp. "McAllister's cabin is sentimental real estate. High visibility, high risk. If he pushes back, leak the conflict narrative. Isolate him." That word isolate hit me harder than I expected. My dad used to say that's how they win, not with bulldozers, with silence, with shame. I remembered his hands planting saplings, explaining roots like they were bloodlines. They weren't just isolating me, they were gutting legacy. Rebecca kept talking all cool detachment. "Send all updates to VR for final sign-off." I paused the file. There it was again, VR. Same initials from the documents Amanda found. Whoever he wasn't just some bureaucrat. He was above her, above Lorraine. This whole thing was bigger than Rebecca's HOA power trip. Then I found drone footage, over my land, my creek. Amanda in frame standing by the bend with her camera. Another clip me locking the back gate at night. That made my stomach drop. They weren't just watching from a distance. They were close, organized, clinical, surveillance level close. I copied everything to an encrypted drive, then took the USB outside and crushed it under a rock. Couldn't risk holding on to something that traceable. 5 minutes later, Amanda showed up. Pale. Eyes wide. Bradley called me, she said no preamble, told me to come straight here. I filled her in Rebecca's voice, VR, the files. She frowned. I've heard Lorraine say something about a VR once, like she was waiting on final green light. We grabbed the whiteboard and started sketching it all out. Rebecca Lorraine Shell Companies, the fake nonprofit in Nevada, Bradley, and now VR. "This isn't just fraud," Amanda said. "This is strategy." I circled the initials in red marker. Then we go after the strategist. The next morning I stepped outside to find red spray paint screaming across my cabin door. "Liar!" The letters were jagged, frantic. Gasoline clung to the soil like a warning. I scanned the area. No broken windows, no fire, just the message. I took a picture and emailed it to Lisa. She replied within 5 minutes, documented. Escalation protocol triggered. By noon, Lisa sent a cease and desist draft. It wasn't bluff. It cited real statutes, targeted harassment, defacement, unlawful surveillance. Amanda, meanwhile, was already editing a second teaser video. She overlaid Rebecca's voice across footage of the creek pollution and my vandalized door. "It has to feel real," she said. "Not just facts, gut truth." She was right. People don't fight numbers. They fight for what they feel. That night we met deep in the woods. No phones, no cameras, just a lantern and a plan. Lisa spread out documents across a picnic table. 3 phases, she said. Document, publish, disrupt. Amanda would gather testimonies from other residents. I'd keep filming. Lisa would push the material to 3 watchdog groups she'd vetted back in her clerkship days. "We drop pieces slowly," she said. "Let them panic. Let them bleed." I added, "No silver bullet. Just 1,000 cuts they can't cauterize." 2 days later, Amanda got a call. Blocked number. Male voice, calm but deliberate. "You've aligned with someone unstable. You still have time to walk away." She recorded it. Lisa traced it to a Shell-owned cabin registered under Willow Creek Renewal. We drove out, no cars, no signs of life. But that satellite dish way oversized, way out of code. Amanda stared at it. They're watching too, she said. Lisa hit pay dirt that night. She found a sealed court file buried in county archives, an old eco-initiative challenge from 6 years ago. Same MO, same shell company format, same name VR. The alias matched a blacklisted federal lobbyist who'd been caught skimming grant money from environmental cleanup budgets. That's our ghost, Lisa whispered. He burns and moves. Now he's here. The case ended in a sealed settlement. Public record wiped clean 3 days later. They've done this before, I muttered. Anne figured they could do it again, but this time they picked the wrong forest, the wrong people. We met again that night, just the three of us. Amanda added a new folder to our shared archive, Operation Rootburn. She smirked. Too dramatic. I shook my head. Just right, because this wasn't just about our land anymore. It was about making sure no one else's story got rewritten by a bunch of cowards with power and fake paper. Later, after they left, I sat alone with the audio from Rebecca again. Let it play until the end. Then I opened Amanda's rough-cut video. No music, just my voice, the facts, and the creak. Lisa's quote came at the end. When silence becomes strategy, noise becomes duty. And hell, things were about to get loud. If this ever sees the light, if even one person hears it through QA stories, then maybe, just maybe they'll know we didn't stay quiet. The call came at noon. Lisa's voice clipped and low, not quite shaken, but close. They reached out to my managing partner, she said, claimed we're enabling conspiracy, asked if the firm wanted to be dragged into hostile media coverage. I didn't speak. I could hear the static of fury under her breath. There was silence, then a sigh, the kind that carries 10 years of rage. Screw them, she said. I didn't go to law school to be someone's puppet. She hung up before I could say thank you. I knew better than to try. That night we met again at the ranger station trailhead. No lights, no signals, just firelight and nerves. Lisa had redlined half the nonprofit filings and flagged discrepancies in their charitable status. They're laundering public trust, she muttered, laying out printed balance sheets. And doing it sloppily. Beside her, Tom Halpern, former Army logistics officer, scanned aerial photos Amanda had taken with a thermal drone. Lisa traced the money trail like a surgeon, precise, furious. Tom paced like it was Kandahar again. These trails are marked for clearing next week, he said. Heavy equipment's coming. I looked at Amanda. You sure we're ready to move? She nodded. I've got interviews, testimonies, locals they threatened. She lifted her camera. We're making this public before they can bury it. I pulled out the encrypted drive. Time to name names. Lisa's data led us to a buried entity under Citadel Environmental Holdings tied to 2 earlier land scams. One name stood out, Vincent Russo. Amanda froze. Wait, Russo? Like the guy who ran West Bay Industries. Lisa nodded. He's been ghosting across state lines since 2014. He didn't just steal land, he weaponized fear. His name rippled through military back channels. Tom nodded. He ran intimidation ops during the drone-based protests, smiled during depositions, like it was sport. Lisa found Russo's fingerprints on Willow Creek's founding nonprofit. Donations cycled in fake grant loops. Phone logs, invoices, land records, we traced it all. Russo wasn't tangential. He'd funded the initial survey 6 months before Rebecca's first visit. He was scouting, Lisa said, and he thought no one would catch on. With Russo came another name, Governor Torres, not directly, but his office had recently pulled state funding from Citadel-linked projects. Lisa raised an eyebrow. You think he knows? I nodded. If anyone can drop a hammer on Citadel, it's Torres. The man once indicted 2 senators before breakfast. Amanda grinned. Then let's give him a reason to act. We drafted a packet 2 pages footnoted, linked to deeper archives. Lisa addressed it to the governor's Environmental Fraud Task Force. Amanda added teaser footage and uploaded it to a secure server. The next morning, Lorraine posted a town-wide notice, emergency HOA meeting mandatory. She's panicking, Amanda whispered, staring at the flyer on the community board. She's trying to grab the narrative. I nodded. Then let's flip it on her. We prepped everything, docs, footage, affidavits. Amanda printed visuals. Tom highlighted security holes. Lisa wore black like she was heading into battle. This wasn't a boardroom. This was a battlefield. USBs and secrets were our ammo. The community center filled quickly. Folding chairs scraped. Murmurs swelled. Lorraine stood at the front like nothing had changed. She began with clarifications. Blamed rumors on misinformation campaigns. Called Amanda's footage selectively edited. Then Lisa stepped forward, calm, sharp. "I'd like to introduce a counterpoint," she said. Lorraine narrowed her eyes. "This isn't a courtroom." Lisa gave a tight smile. "No, but it's still subject to truth." She tapped play. Rebecca's voice rang out, "Leak the conflict narrative. Isolate him." The room froze. One man coughed. A woman covered her mouth. Lorraine blanched. Lisa continued. "These are your leader's real words, not rumors, recordings. Amanda projected drone footage, illegal clearings, creek contamination campsite, trash dumped in storm runoff, timestamps, forged signatures on minutes, then the shell companies. Lisa listed fake nonprofits and tied them to Russo. When his name dropped, Tom added, "He's not just a crook, he's a threat." Lorraine tried to jump in. "This is character assassination." Lisa cut her off, calm but merciless. "No, this is forensic evidence. I've got hard copies for the board, and 5 for the state attorney's office." The room shifted. Faces turned from Lorraine. One elderly man stood. "You said it was a wellness project," Lorraine stammered. "It is." Lisa held up a funding chart. "You routed donations through a for-profit shell. That's wire fraud." A woman asked, "Did Russo ever step foot here?" Lisa replied, "He didn't have to. That's the point of shell proxies." Lorraine sat down. No one asked her to speak again. The board voted unanimously to freeze all Willow Creek projects and launch an emergency audit. Outside, under a cold night sky, the 3 of us stood in silence. It didn't feel peaceful, more like smoke after a fire. "This isn't over," Amanda said. I nodded, but it's shifted. Lisa checked her phone. Governor's office replied, "They want a deposition next week." I raised an eyebrow. "You going?" She nodded. "You should too." I almost said no, almost walked away. But then I remembered the lies, the spray paint my dad's boots on that land. I'll be there. At the cabin, I stared at the creek. The ash was still in the dirt, branches still broken, but life was creeping back, frogs, raccoons, moving shadows. It wasn't whole, but it was healing. Amanda joined me on the porch. "Think they'll forgive?" she asked. I took a breath. "Some will, some won't. Truth doesn't need permission." She leaned back. "Good. I'm not apologizing." I smiled. "Neither am I." The next day, Tom dropped off a flash drive labeled Project Homestead. Inside, land titles from other victims. Parcels linked to Russo's network. "We build it out," he said. "Map the whole damn thing." Amanda suggested a digital archive, interviews, documents, interactive maps. Expose them all, permanently. Lisa nodded. "If we want to stop them, we don't just win. We document every step." That night, we cataloged files, connected patterns, built a plan. Because one win wasn't enough. We had to make it stick. That meant turning silence into signal, secrets into search results, power into accountability. I adjusted my collar. My hands were shaking. Strange corporate boardrooms never did that. But this wasn't stocks. This was justice. The chairs were filling fast. Retirees with notepads, young couples holding hands, county reps pretending to be invisible. Amanda double-checked the queue. Lisa sat beside me, pen ready. "They'll try to flip it back on us," she whispered. "Let them try," I said. My hands still shook. Lorraine entered late. Same power blazer, same fake composure. She walked to the podium like she still owned the room. "Thank you for attending this emergency session," she began, sweet as syrup. "There have been recent misunderstandings. We'd like to clarify the council's intentions." Someone shouted, "You fined me for planting tomatoes." Another yelled, "You towed my son's car because it was dusty." Voices cracked. Decades of bottled-up fury spilled out. It wasn't just outrage, it was grief finally speaking up. Lorraine's smile thinned. "Let's remain civil," she said. Lisa stood. "Then start with this. Can you explain these financial transfers?" Spreadsheets filled the screen behind Lorraine, dates, amounts, shadow fund links. Lorraine paled. "Those were routine reallocations," she said. Amanda rolled more footage. Rebecca's voice neutralized the McAllister property. Gasps. One man crossed himself. Another whispered, "She actually said that." Lorraine fumbled. "These are edited," but no one was listening. Then the doors flew open. The air changed. Fear returned like a memory. Vincent Russo entered in a slate gray suit, flanked by 2 silent men. He walked like someone who already owned the ending. "Good evening," he said, stepping to the mic. "I represent Citadel Holdings. I'd like to correct the narrative." The room went silent. Russo tapped his tablet. New documents appeared. "This land was misallocated in 1951, he said. "Our initiative is correcting that injustice." The documents flickered on screen like a history rewritten by a tyrant. My throat tightened. They were rewriting my grandfather and burying his memory under lies. Lisa whispered, "That file's forged." "I've seen the real one," Russo smirked. "We believe in harmony," he said, "but harmony requires removal of obsolete tenants." That word tenants hit like a slap. Amanda stepped forward, camera rolling. "What do you say to the accusation that your company manipulated permits, silenced dissent, and trespassed on private land?" Russo didn't flinch. "We redeveloped stagnant spaces. Change is always uncomfortable for the underprepared." The crowd murmured, shifting like waves before a storm. That's when Bradley stood. He was trembling, one hand clenched around a flash drive. "I have something," he said. His voice was shaky, but his eyes were clear. "From my grandmother's estate, original deed copies. Correspondence proving McAllister land was privately secured before 1951. The USB felt like a grenade in his palm. His voice shook, but he stood straighter than I'd ever seen him. Russo chuckled. How quaint. An heirloom of hearsay. Lisa took the drive, plugged it in, and projected scanned documents, letters, maps, signatures. The crowd leaned forward. "These are legal," she said. "Authenticated yesterday." The room erupted. People began shouting again this time, not in pain but in fire. Russo's mask cracked just slightly. "Enough," he said. "This is civil defamation." Then someone from the audience yelled, "Then sue us." Laughter followed, but just as Bradley turned toward the podium, it happened. The noise ripped through the room like thunder. Blood bloomed across his shirt, and for one gutless second I froze. Screams. A woman dropped to the floor. Lisa ducked. Amanda shoved me behind a table. Bradley staggered backward, blinking confused, then collapsed beside the podium. Russo vanished behind his guards, already retreating toward the exit. Everything blurred. Sirens. Shouts. Someone called for medics. Amanda pressed her scarf to Bradley's chest while Lisa called it in. Gunshot. Right shoulder. Still breathing. People huddled. Some ran. I crouched beside him, hearing gurgled breath. "Stay with us," I said. "You did good, Brad. You did real good." He tried to smile but couldn't. Lisa wiped blood off the tablet. "We've got the files," she said, voice brittle but hard. "They won't erase this." Amanda looked up at me, face pale. "This changes everything." I nodded numb. "Yeah, now it's not just fraud, it's attempted murder." Outside, deputies sealed the building. Lorraine sat handcuffed in the back of a cruiser, sobbing into her sleeves. "I didn't know he said he'd handle it legally," she wailed. A paramedic wheeled Bradley out on a stretcher. He was conscious barely. Tom arrived out of breath, jaw tight. "I saw the muzzle flash from outside," he said, "but I couldn't reach him in time." Lisa handed the evidence bag to an officer. "Make sure this doesn't disappear." The officer nodded grimly. "We've already got state investigators en route. They want Russo detained if he crosses county lines again." Amanda whispered, "It's happening." Back at the cabin, the creek felt different, quieter, not peaceful, just watchful. I sat on the porch, shirt still stained. Amanda joined me with a blanket and a 1,000-yard stare. "He's gonna live," she said. "They said the bullet missed his lung." I nodded, unable to speak. She added, "The governor's office called. They've reviewed the packet. They want an emergency task force. And they want you there." I finally looked at her. "Are you coming?" She nodded. "I already packed." We didn't say anything else for a while, just watched the sky darken, each of us bracing for whatever tomorrow might bring. Because justice doesn't end with a gunshot. Sometimes it begins with one. The takeover wasn't subtle. Citadel didn't need subtle anymore. Their trucks showed up before dawn, flat black, no plates, windows tinted like mirror glass. Private security guards patrolled the streets, politely telling neighbors that HOA security has been restructured under Citadel's oversight. They weren't just flexing muscle. They were sending a message: obedience or ruin. HOA was dead. Citadel had taken its mask. Lorraine was gone. Russo had vanished, but something worse had moved in, something calm, legal, and surgical. The quiet was heavier now. Kids didn't ride bikes anymore. People pulled curtains even when no one knocked. Amanda captured the new signs going up: Citadel Community Enforcement, Citadel Neighborhood Integrity. Even the community garden had been fenced off, padlocked, and marked with a permit nobody had seen filed. Lisa and I held nightly meetings in my cabin. Attendance kept growing. Clergy teachers, ex-military retirees. They were scared, but they were angrier. The files Amanda leaked had gone viral. We weren't alone anymore. Local press had picked up the story. Then, national. That's when Daniel ran in pale and shaking, holding his phone like it was radioactive. "You need to see this," he said, voice cracking. The text came from a private line traced back to a Charleston legal office, notorious for hostile real estate takeovers. It read, "You've made your point. Time to stop. Return the footage, or we return the silence. Initials only RL." It was like hearing the villain knock on your door after dark. Friendly tone but soaked in menace. Amanda stared at the screen. Langley. Rebecca Langley. The name landed like a stone in the room. She had been the liaison this whole time, but everything traced back to her. The shell trusts, the campaign funds, the misfiled deeds. Lisa spoke low. "She's not Russo's partner. He reports to her." We doubled our defenses. Lisa sent duplicates of every document to 3 separate newsrooms. Amanda secured off-site backups. Tom organized a neighborhood watch, unofficial and silent, but very much armed. "We're not marching," he said. "We're surviving." That night, Lisa got a call from a federal contact. "They're watching. If it escalates, they'll move." Amanda nodded. "Then we give them a reason to move." We planned one final live stream from the old town hall where this all started. A digital reckoning, a timeline, a name, a deed, a legacy. We'd show the entire nation who owned what and how they stole it. They came in black SUVs, 3 of them, just as we were setting up cameras. One man stepped out alone. Slick suit, no badge, no entourage, just presence. He looked like money, and War had shaken hands and walked into the room. Calm, expensive, and absolutely lethal. Lawson. No first name, no smile. "I assume you know who I represent," he said. I stepped forward. "Citadel. Anne Langley?" He tilted his head. "We call her the architect. You should be grateful. This place was dying until she gave it a future." I almost laughed. By rewriting its past, he didn't blink. History belongs to the record, and the record belongs to those with the means to preserve it. Lisa stepped up beside me. "You mean, purchase it?" Amanda streamed it live. The comment section exploded. Lawson gave us one last glance. "End the transmission, or we end what little remains of this community's reputation." We didn't move. He walked away. Tom murmured, "That's a threat, right?" Amanda nodded. "It's also evidence. We handed out drives to allies, USBs and hollowed-out books under floorboards inside potted plants. Our legacy wouldn't vanish with a gunshot or a corrupted file." That night, someone cut power to Bradley's house again. But this time, Lisa was there. So was Amanda with a generator. No one slept. We posted updates hourly, knowing we were being watched. By dawn, the state attorney general called. "We want your full archive. We're convening a task force. And we'd like you to testify." Amanda exhaled. Lisa leaned her head back and smiled. I went outside and looked at the creek. The same one my grandfather wrote about in letters. "It always runs forward," he said, "even when the world forgets where it started." I whispered, "I remember." Just before we left, Daniel handed me a small metal box. Inside were original surveyor's notes, yellowed and dry, showing the cabin lot untouched since 1948. Amanda added the final flash drive. Lisa sealed it. We handed it to a courier with gloves on. "Chain of custody," I said. "Tell the governor we're ready." The sun was rising as we loaded into the car. No sirens, no guns, just paper, memory. Truth. On the way out of town, we passed the new Citadel signs. Amanda rolled down her window and flipped her camera back. "Get this shot," she said. Lisa asked quietly, "Do you think it's enough?" "No," I said, "but it's the start." This wasn't about land anymore. It was about history, who owns it, who tells it, and who's willing to burn for it. And that's where I left it, for now. HOA's gone. The fake bylaws are toast, and Russo well turns out even guys like him can bleed when the lights hit just right. But you know what stuck with me the most? It wasn't the gold or the cease and desist from the governor. It was how long we all just let it happen. How silence made space for monsters. Anyway, if any part of that felt a little too familiar, maybe drop a comment. Yeah, I'd love to hear if your neighborhood's got its own Rebecca, If you liked hanging out in this mess with me, hit like, subscribe, or just tap that little thanks button under the video. Keeps QA stories rolling. Till next time, take care of your land and read the fine print. See y'all next time.
That's a wrap from QA Stories, but don't go far. There's plenty more drama, twists, and unbelievable stories waiting for you on our channel.